Ah, Good morning to everybody. Let us take for silent prayer for two minutes.
The schedule up to what time?
Okay, sir.
Correct.
Yes. So today is the third day for this Atal online product development program on corporate restructuring of public sector banks present scenario. I welcome the resource person, Professor M. Selvam, member of syndicate, Farnason University, Tiruchirappalli, chairperson, School of Business Studies, former dean, Faculty of Management, Farnason University, Tiruchirappalli. He is going to deliver the topic of this corporate restructuring of public sector banks valuation. On the portal of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, on my behalf, I wholeheartedly welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also to welcome all the participants who was assembled across the country to take part this the legend of the eminent personality Professor M. Selvam going to deliver this speech for this valuation of corporate restructuring of public sector banks. Now, may I invite Dr. S.P. Madhiraj, Professor, Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Alagappa University, to welcome the gathering and to introduce our resource person and chief guest, Professor M. Selvam. Thank you.
Very good morning, all. Today, the first session, corporate restructuring of public sector banks valuation. The topic is to be discussed with the eminent professor, Professor M. Selvam, Professor and Head, former Dean, School of Management, Member Syndicate, Bharatdasan University, Trichy, is going to deliver about the corporate restructuring of PSP and valuation. With the time constraints, I'm going to brief a resume of Dr. M. Selvam, person head, has been heading the Department of Commerce and Financial Studies, Bharatdasan University, Tiruchirappalli, and the founder of publisher cum chief editor of Smart Journal of Business Management Studies, a referred indexed professional international journal since 2005. Also, he is currently the syndicate member of Bharatdasan University, Shire School of Business Studies, coordinator Center for Entrepreneur and Skill Development, and coordinator NIT University level. He was former Dean, Faculty of Management, and former Director in charge UGC Academic Staff College, Bharatdasan University. He started his career in the Center of Distance Education, Bharatdasan University in 1992. Then he moved to the Department of Commerce in 1999. Since 2005, he is a Senate member of Bharatdasan University. As a head of Commerce and Financial Study, he introduced and designed various courses among the professional courses, namely MBA in Financial Management, and MBA in Marketing Management, and MPhil in Management in regular mode. Apart from being head of the department, he also serves as a member of several academic committees, boards of studies in various universities in India. And further, he is the life member of many professional bodies like Indian Commerce Association, Indian Accounting Association, Association of Economics of Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu Investors Association, Indian Econometrics Society, and Tiruchirappalli districts, Tiny and Small Scale Industries Association. He also acted as a member of UGC and AICTE committee. Application. To his credit, Professor M. Selvam has been a researcher in the area of financial management for over 2 decades. He has published more than 180 research papers. It is not an easy to anybody else. He has published more than 180 research articles in various referred journals, including foreign journals, and 22 chapters in edited books, and worked on more than 7 research projects funded by UGC and ICCSR. He also instrumental being out of 20 doctorates and 15 MPhil scholars in the area of finance. He has authored 10 books and co-authored 13 books. Some of the books mentioned below: Merger and Acquisition of Banking Sector, Customers Loyalty Management in Banking, Capital Market Efficiency, Mutual Funds. These are the evidence for the books authored by Dr. M. Selvam. Foreign visit. Dr. M. Selvam visited so many countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, USA, and Dubai, and presented papers in the various international seminars. And he also delivered a talk in a live Tamil television program, Vanavil TV, called Villudugal in Malaysia, and All India Radio Tiruchirappalli. Dr. M. Selvam organized several national and international level conferences, seminars, workshops. Also, he delivered more than 100 invited lectures in different colleges and universities. Apart from being the founder, publisher of chief editor of Smart Journal of Business Management Studies, he also the editorial board of 5 reputed journals, which include Kaveri College of Journal Management Research, Journal of Financial Services and Management, GMRD Journal of Management Research, and ACCST Research Journal. Besides, he is a blind reviewer of various commerce and management journals. He got various awards. Like Professor M. Selvam has been conferred with Rashtriya Vidya Saraswati Puraskar Award in 2008, Eminent Citizen of India Award in 2008, Jewel of India Award in 2009, P.K. Das Memorial Best Faculty Award in 2010, Best Professor Award in 2013, Tamil Nadu Scientist Award in 2015, Award for Research Excellence in 2016, and Editorial Excellence Award in 2017 in recognition of his contribution to academic research and administrative achievements. With a small brief introduction, I welcome you, sir, for the session. And also I welcome respected Professor and Head, Dr. Vedirajan sir, and Dr. faculty members, Dr. Moraji, Dr. Arundam, and Dr. Ganeshan Murthy, co-coordinator, deputy coordinator for ATED. And also I welcome all the participants, faculty members from the various colleges and institutions and across the country, and participants. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Madhiraj. Okay, sir, up to 11:30, sir, my time?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay. Sorry for my late joining due to some network issue. Yeah, I really very happy to be as a resource person in this big session. I think there are 98 participants who have joined, and we appreciate their interest for getting some information from this particular event. Most respected Professor Vedirajan, my good friend, and other co-organizers, other friends who put sincere efforts in organizing this particular event. So I know the difficulties that they face to organize this particular event, no doubt. So therefore, my sincere appreciation. Yeah, you know, the current pandemic situation arises due to
Unmute the mic, bro, sir. Unmute. Yeah?
Sir, is not audible, sir. Your voice is not recognized.
Unmute. அது வேணாம் டைம் இருக்கு.
Sir, is not audible, sir.
Unmute mic.
என்னது பேசுறாரு?
இந்த சிஸ்டத்துல பண்ணுங்க, சிஸ்டத்துல.
Hello.
Right.
Is it okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, now it's okay.
Okay. Most respected Professor Dr. Vedirajan and other friends, co-organizers who have organized this wonderful event. I know that organizing such event is really very, very difficult. And I am happy to note that there are more than 98 participants who have joined in this program. So we have to appreciate their interest in getting some information by this particular event. Dear friends, after COVID, I didn't deliver any lecture at all, as I personally don't believe that online lecture is very effective. But Vedirajan asked me to give this lecture after 1.5 year gap. I am standing before you, and I have joined with you to share my experience. Yes, friends, actually my lecture is scheduled by tomorrow. But again, due to my personal work, I requested my good friend Professor Vedirajan to advance it today, and he was kind enough to help me and advanced my lecture today. So therefore, I am now disturbing the schedule. Dear friends, the topic given to me is corporate restructuring of public sector banks valuations. Yes, the topic is really very interesting. Dear friends, whatever I'm going to say is my opinion, no doubt. And you may agree or disagree. You have to disagree. As long as you are disagreeing, then you are thinking differently. And a very good indicator of social scientists is that you have to disagree with others. So that is a symptom of growth. This is what my belief. This is the way with which I was taught by my teachers in Annamalai University. So you have to disagree, no issue. And whatever the information, the PPT is very much available in website. So here and there I have made some modification. You can put a simple question. Then when it is available in the website, what is the need for this lecture and all? Yes, dear friends, the way of presentation and the way with which I am going to deliver the information will certainly be useful to you in some respect. So that is what is going to be new. So I strongly believe that my lecture will certainly be useful to you, and you may feel this 1.5 hour stay is very much useful to you. So with this few introduction, once again, my sincere appreciation to the organizers under the leadership of my good friend Dr. Vedirajan. So I would like to directly go to the topic which is assigned to me for discussion of today. Yes, my sincere appreciation to the other friends who introduced me well. Yes, dear friends, the topic given to me is again corporate restructuring of public sector banks valuations. So this is what my scheme of presentation of today. Public sector banks in India, details of public sector banks in India, 2021, problems faced by public sector banks, corporate restructuring as a business strategy, need for corporate restructuring, types of corporate restructuring, merger and acquisition, and a list of mergers in India. Motive and objective behind mega mergers of public sector banks, issues relating to merger and acquisition, then valuation, which is very much of my topic, then value and valuation, key facts, then valuation and a deal cycle, when the valuation is required, points to be considered by the valuer, Indian laws, the general principles of valuation, preliminary steps in valuation, valuation a perspective, where is the value, and valuation approach, valuation, issues and challenges relating to valuation. With this, I am coming to the conclusion. This topic is very interesting, and it itself a very big, a separate event must be organized like this to discuss, because it is a very big topic. I will try to level best to cover almost all the sub-topic which I have prepared to you. Yes, friends, we are all very much aware about the public sector banks in India. You see, public sector bank is owned by the government of India. That means it has more than 51% of the shares. So therefore, since the majority of the share is holding by the government, it is called public sector banks. And the central government entered the banking business by way of nationalizing the Imperial Bank in the year 1955, no doubt. As of today, India has 12 public sector banks only. You know the reason. So in 2020, more than 10 public sector banks were merged to make 4 major banks in India. This is also very recent event. You may be aware of it. Then as a result, the State Bank of India is the largest commercial bank of India in many aspects. So it has the maximum assets, okay, among all other banks. So this is what the details of the public sector banks in India since establishment I have given you in a slide. If you want, you can take. That is the name of the bank, revenues, the year in which it was established, where is the headquarters. So all details are given to you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is a continuation of earlier table. So there are 12 public sector banks in India. Okay. So what are the problems faced by the public sector bank? Yeah, this is a very important we have to discuss. Because of the problem, I think the question of restructuring of public sector bank arises according to my views or opinion. So non-performing assets, so non-performing assets, public sector bank is very high. And I don't want to take much time on discussing on this because other speakers would have covered. But even then, you should know the name of the main problem. So the first problem is non-performing assets. The second one, losses in rural branches. Yes, the banks branches were also located in a rural area. So naturally, the revenue from the rural area may be less. So when you calculate the profits or revenue according to branch-wise analysis normally reveals that there is a loss in rural branches. But the question is whether is it correct? When the public sector bank is not rendering service to the rural people or in rural area of India, then who else? That question is always there. I don't disagree with that. Just I am listing out the name of the problem. I don't think that I am supporting this problem. So I am totally unbiased. So that you have to understand. The third one, large overdues. Yes, similarly, when you lend a loan, then dues are very large in rural India, rural part of. In generally rural, even in business people also, they are not repaying it. The main reason for this may be a lending policy may not be effective or perfect. Other things. I don't want to go into that. The fourth one, competition from non-banking financial institutions. Yes, the non-banking financial institutions are also allowed to do banking business to some extent. So that also affects the performance or the revenue aspect of the public sector bank. So that is one of the very serious problem faced by the public sector banks. In addition to that, competition from the foreign banks. Yeah, after some time, foreign banks were allowed to play in India. Even though they focus only in metropolitan city or city areas, then that also affects the public sector banks. Then there is a gap between promise and performance. This is also another thing. Public sector bank gives some promises, or in turn the government of India or other authorities, RBI, they give some promise, and they are not able to discharge, and then the performance is affected. This is also there, or they have fixed the target of profit and other activities, and they are not able to fulfill. That is why the performance is affected, or in short, there is a gap between the promise and the performance. This is also very important one. Another very serious problem which everyone may accept, political pressure. Since it's a public sector bank, there is a political pressure to lend a loan in all activities, in the service area and everything. Maybe overdues issues and everything, there is a political pressure. So this is also another problem. Okay, we need from one point of view, political pressure is required to render service who are not covered. But on the other side, political pressure is also coming for so many things which affects the performance of the public sector bank, which you have to understand. Then now with this, I am coming to the solution. Then how to overcome these problems or solve the problem? So that is corporate restructuring is one of the solutions. So what is corporate restructuring? You may be hearing definition for this. However, I would like to be only very small definition for this. That is, it is defined as a process involved in changing the organization of the business. Whether it is banking or any business, we have to change the organization. So it is a process of significantly changing a company business model, management team, or financial structure. This is very important. We are all commerce and management teachers, so we know what is financial structure, and the restructuring mainly affected by the corporate restructuring. Okay. Why this restructuring? To address the challenges and the problems only. They put it as a challenge, but the problems also we have to address. And the another aim of our corporate restructuring is to increase the shareholders' value. That is more and more important. Every shareholder is expecting the increase of their values, maybe market value. When the value is increasing, they won't bother about other things. So the corporate restructuring involves making dramatic changes to a business. Maybe cutting out the departments, reducing the departments or merging the departments, whatever it may be, there is a dramatic changes to the business is taking place. That is the corporate restructuring. So it implies rearranging the banking business. Here I am coming to our topic. Corporate restructuring means you have to rearrange the banking business. Why? For increasing the efficiency and the profitability. So that is what we want. Okay, so we have to rearranging the banking business mainly in order to increase the efficiency and profitability, my dear friends. That corporate restructuring as a business strategy is it is being used as a business strategy. Already the firms or banks are under some problem. It faces a lot of challenges, maybe due to its policy or political interference or competition from Indian banks or foreign banks, whatever it may be. How do you manage? So what type of strategy we have to? So corporate restructuring is also banking strategy. It is used as a banking strategy. It is usually designed to achieve the minimize the impact on employees. That is very important. Whatever the change you have made, that should not create or pass over great impact on employees. They should not be affected. That is also very important. That should be the strategy of a business. Sending all the employees out and recruiting new may not be the good policy. And restructuring may involve the company's sales or a merger with another company. Or in some way, you can also sell all your assets or your company or the bank branch, or you can merge with the another company which is very much interested to merge with you or join with you. That is also corporate structuring. This is also a strategy. So company use restructuring as a business strategy so as to ensure their long-term viability. That is very important. Whatever the strategy you use, that should not affect the long-term viability of a concern. You should keep this in your mind. So the shareholders or creditors might force the restructuring when the company's current business strategies are not healthy or there is insufficient funds or insufficient performance or poor performance which may not prevent the loss on their investment. So the shareholders or creditors' interest is to protect their own lending or their own money which they invest into the company. So that is what their great concern. So that they, then in that case they go by restructure, you do something, you change the business, or change the model, you change the strategy like that, they will also emphasize. Then what is the need for restructuring? Yeah, it focuses on strength, operational synergy, efficient allocation of managerial capabilities and infrastructure. And the second need, consolidation and economies of sales by expansion or diversion to exploit the extended domestic and global market. So this is also another important reason. So there are many reasons are there, and the main reason or need is that to improve the corporate performance. Again, I come to the nutshell. I don't want to read all. The very need of corporate restructuring is to improve the corporate performance so as to bring it on board with the competitor. This is very important. So every firm or every bank has its own competitor, and unless you improve your performance at least on board with the competitor, it is very difficult to survive and you have to do all radical changes by using technology, whatever it may be, so as to improve the corporate performance or banking performance here. This is the great need, or you can call it as even as a challenge for implementing for the corporate restructuring, my dear friends. Then what are the corporate restructuring? Don't worry, I will not explain all these things as it is this topic. First one, merger, demerger, reverse mergers, disinvestment, takeovers, joint venture, strategic alliance, and slump sales. So these are all different type of restructuring depending upon your business and your interest, maybe acceptance. Any company or any firm may go by any one of these type of corporate restructuring. Just only one slide about the merger and acquisition of banks, because it is required for valuation. That is why I have just explaining very briefly. Consolidation through mergers, takeover, acquisition has drawn attention of financial world in the recent past. So we have to call it as a financial world, which is in which the bank is a very important partner or an important part. So consolidation through merger or takeover acquisition has drawn the attention of everybody in the financial world. Narasimhan Committee also recommended this. Basel Accord or convention have also propagated the need for merger and the consolidation of banking industry to bring synergy consequences. Yes, synergy is a very important concept or a term which you should not forget. You should know the meaning of it. Okay, so synergy consequences, synergy value is very important in running or in doing any activities. That is very, very important. So the long-term productivity and the strengthening the competitive edge are the core objective of the merger. And there are many public sector in India which already accept the consolidation and the merger, which they think that is a good idea in principle. So the merger will help the banks to improve the operational efficiency. Again, I say, and the customer service also. Yeah, because a particular bank may have branches in a nook and corner of the country. And if you get into the merger with that particular bank, then you can also see the customers through that branch. So that way, you can do a lot of service to the customers. So list of merger also I have given just on that slide. If you want, you can make use of it. There are 22 banks. So name of the bank, the bank with which merged with the year of merger, all I have given. So in 2017, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 banks, SBI Group were merged with the State Bank of India. As a result, State Bank has become one of the largest bank in terms of asset or branch or customer, whatever it may be. Then other banks' details are also given. You can notice, and the PowerPoint is very much with the organizer. They will share with you after the event. You can make use of this information for any purpose, any academic purpose. Then what is the motive objective of the merger? Again, I say, to enhance the capacity to increase the credit. Yes, if you want to lend more, then you need funds. So you have to increase your capacity to increase the credit. That is the first merger. Suppose A bank has 200 crores of asset, B bank has 100 crores of asset. When these two banks get into merged, then total assets may be 300. So they can lend more. They can do a lot of service. So that may be the point which you have to note. Then banks with a strong national presence and international reach, it is also possible. So if you want to do a service to the international community who are living in other parts of the country, you have to establish your branch there. Then when the bank has a strong assets, strong base, then only you can run a branch to different countries. So we need to merger, or you can also merge with the foreign banks, depending upon you, because it is a strategy. What is your aim? How do you discharge the aim or achieve the aim? Then accordingly you have to go by the strategy. Then you can do a lending cost also. Reduction of lending cost is also possible by way of a merger. The next generation technology you can adopt. In order to use the next generation technology, you need a huge funds. Technology, there are many advantages for using the technology, but at the same time, you have to invest heavily so as to procure and establish the technology. So you need funds. Then when two banks join together, I think it is possible to use the technology. And you can improve the ability to raise the market resources. So this is also another motive or objective behind the merger of public sector banks. Okay, whatever may be the motive, whatever the issues are there, is it very comfortable to have a merger and acquisition? No, there are many issues. Here I have identified 4 or 5, 6 or 7 issues, which I have given in the slide. That is a lacking of good motive for the acquisition. So there is a lack of good motive. We can't say that everyone have a good motive for acquisition. Targeting a wrong company or wrong bank. Okay. Suppose A company's asset is 200, B company asset is 200. When there is a compatible merger, then total asset may be 300, or maybe in a year it may increase. Suppose there is a discomfort in any bank, target bank or a targeting bank, then naturally this 300 may come down. Okay, so that is very, very important. So targeting a wrong company or bank is a very big issue. You have to think. Then I'm coming to our subject valuation. So here valuation comes. Okay, so regarding the valuation, one issue is overestimating the synergy. So synergy value is very important. Sometimes you may overestimate, or overpaying also is possible. So what is the actual assets of that particular company? Maybe a bank with which our firm is going to get merged. So you will pay maybe 100 crores worth, you may pay 120 crores or more than that. So this is another problem. Therefore, proper valuation is very, very important. The success of the merger or any corporate strategy depends on proper valuation. Here is the topic. That is why I have taken previous slides moving here and there. So you may think why a speaker is covering all these things. Yes, merger is very important. Valuation is very important. Similarly, many other issues are there. Losing the trust of important stakeholders is also there. When suppose A bank is a popular bank, B bank is also a popular bank. When you merge it with A and B, you may call it as A and B bank, whatever it may be. But we can't say that all these stakeholders or shareholders may be happy, because their individual identity they are getting lost, or they may lose their individual identity, any one bank. Okay, so that is also very important problem. Then inadequate due diligence and failed integration is also there. Okay, so these are some of the issues, dear friends, we have to notice. So with this, I am coming to our own topic, my dear friends, valuation. So the success of any corporate strategy may be by way of merger or other type of corporate restructuring. Valuation is very, very important. So when they are not expertise, or they have failed if they fail to do proper valuation, naturally all their efforts put forth earlier may not be beneficial. So this you have to understand. So now we are coming to the very important area of valuation. So what is valuation? Valuation is an exercise to assess the worth of a bank or a property. So you may value the bank or property, or you may value the company. So you have to, it is an exercise. It is not simply one thing. It involves many activities, many things. Well, valuation. So you have to assess the worth. Worth is very important. Worth of a bank, worth of a property. So the valuation is certainly needed in a merger or amalgamation or a demerger or acquisition, whatever it may be. Valuation is certainly needed in all corporate structuring activities. That way also you can understand. So it is very, very essential to fix the value of the shares. So here, when you buy one particular company, suppose A company is buying the B company, what is the value? Book value of share is different, but what is the market value? For a reputed company or bank, the market value may be higher than the book value. For a weak bank or poor performing bank, the market value may be less than the book value. That is also possible. So you have to fix the value, exact value, correct value of the shares to be exchanged in a merger or consolidation or any other activities of the corporate restructuring. So this is very, now technically they call it exchange ratio. You have to calculate the exchange ratio. Okay. So this is a very important topic, and even you are all academicians may be undertaking research. You can also encourage your students and scholars to do project or research on exchange ratios. Exchange ratio is a very interesting, and you can use that. There is a formula. There are theorem for that also. All can be tested. But it is focusing on this. There is to my experience, very less number of research is being conducted on exchange ratio or valuation. So the main objective of valuation is to ensure a transaction in a reasonable manner, without any room for any doubt or controversy about the value obtained by any party to the transaction. There are many parties involved in the valuation process, or merger and acquisition, or amalgamation, or demerger, whatever it may be. So all should be accept that. So there is a reasonable manner, in a reasonable manner, transaction to take place. So that is the very objective of the valuation. This you have to understand, my dear friends. And there is a similar concept of value and valuation. Yeah, you should know this also. So value is an economic concept. It is an estimate of likely price to be concluded by a buyer and a seller of a good or service, whatever it may be, that is available for purchase. That is a value. So how much value the seller is ready to receive, and how much value the buyer is ready to receive and the seller is ready to give. So that is so it is not a fact. Okay, that you have to understand. And what is the valuation? So valuation is a process of determining the economic worth. This is very important within inverted comma. Economic worth. What is the economic worth of an asset? What is the economic worth of a company? I mean to say the shares. Market value of the share, all are come under the economic worth. So under certain assumption and limiting conditions, this is also very important. There may be some problem for the bank, which may not be revealed to the public so far. When the question of merger arises, all informations will come out. So there may be some conditions, may be supporting condition, some condition may be the limiting condition to the bank, all may or will get reflected in the values of the company or in the net worth of the company, whatever it may be. So that is why evaluation is a broad, very important exercise to be carried out. So that you have to understand. Then there are some key facts. What are the key facts you should know, my dear friends? Price is not the same as a value. value is different and the price is different. Or we all expect that the value should be reflected in the price. But today that is not happening. Okay, there are many reasons. If you ask me why, I also do not have very exact answer for this. But the price cannot be taken as a value of the firm or asset. Similarly, value is not equal, may not be equal to price. Sometimes price may be high or value may be high. Sometimes value may be low or price may be high. In either manner, it may vary. Or there may be a gap, I can put it. The value varies with the person, purpose and time. That is also there. So value varies with the person, purpose and time. You have to understand. Then transaction concludes at the negotiated prices. So generally, price may not get reflected because of the negotiation, the interest of the person, willingness of the person. Suppose if you are very much needed any particular product, you may be ready to give or ready to give some amount more than the value. Suppose any particular asset is worth of only 100 rupees, you are very much needed. So you may be ready to give even 120 or 130 also, more than the value. That is also there. That is why I am telling price may not be equal to value. Or value may not be always reflected in the price. That way you take it. So valuation is a hybrid of parts and sides. So you have to understand this. So this is the valuations and the deal cycle. You see this picture. Yeah, first thing you have to target the identification. Target identification is very important. What we are going to do? We are going to purchase one particular company, bank, B bank. So we are A bank, we need to buy B bank. So target, what we have to do? So their entry of valuation arises. And once the target is fixed, then the negotiation starts between buyer and seller. So before negotiation, what do you have to do? You yourself must have what is the valuation, what may be the worth, what is the BRI deal, what is the management board consideration. So all you have to understand, you have to keep in your mind. That is why it is given before negotiation. So before negotiation, you should have fair market value, you should know. Then what is a pre-deal of a purchase price allocation? All you must keep this in your mind, and you can think of the what I have to say for negotiation. Then having this in your mind, you can while negotiation means asset valuation. What is the value of assets? And the third one, post diligence adjustments. Yeah, after negotiation, some adjustment you have to make. So based on the fair valuation, FMV valuations. Fair market valuation only value only. So that you have to, what is a fair market value? Suppose negotiation may be little bit higher than the fair market value in some case. In some case, the negotiation may be lesser than the fair market value. So you have to adjust. That is very important. Otherwise, you cannot achieve the target. Exactly perfect, negotiation not possible. And the fourth step is that transaction structuring and closure. So this involves the three things. There is a transaction structuring and closure. So what is your deal? Is it for merger or a demerger or amalgamation? That you have to decide. And another thing under this, what is a tax and regulatory evaluation is there. Whatever the agreed value, then what is the value according to the regulation is also very, very important. All you should keep in your mind. And under the fourth one, third point PPA, that is the purchase price allocation. What is the purchase price allocation? Also, you have to decide. All come under the deal cycle. And the last one is the post-transaction formalities. Okay, somehow deal is okay, target is okay, negotiation completed, adjustment you have made, transaction structuring and everything is very much completed. So now, post-transaction formalities. After purchase, or after merger, or acquisition, or demerger, whatever it may be. So there may be a lender compliance and the financial purposes is another one. So how are you going to comply the lender? All you have to think, decide the formalities. And the last one is exit. So before exit or before think of exit, what you have to decide is a portfolio valuation. Yeah, there is a individual asset value is there. When you make it as a group of assets, so what is the valuation? The portfolio valuation you have to decide or fix. Okay. Then only you can think of the exit. There is a buyout or exit or dispute valuations. All comes under the exit part. So this is what 6 steps: target identification, negotiation and a term sheet, post diligence adjustments, transaction structuring and closure, post transaction formalities, and exit are the 6 important stage is there in the valuation and the deal cycle. So therefore, valuation is an integral part of the deal. So without valuation, you cannot think of executing the deal, and the success depends on the valuation process, which you have to understand. And when the valuation is required, yes, there are 5 or 6 important circumstances. All are available in the any books, my dear friends. So when issuing the shares to public, either through IPO or offer of sales, then you need the valuation. And when the promoter want to invite strategic investors or for pricing first issue, then also valuation is important. And the third one, when you think of joint venture by subscription or acquisition of shares, then also you have to think of valuation. And the D, fourth occasion is that when you think of open offer for acquisition of shares, you want to buy the shares and you are tendering for open offer, then also valuation is required. You should keep this the correct exact value, then only you can think of offer. And another important circumstances, when you think of buyback or delisting of shares, to execute buyback or delisting, valuation is, you should know what is the value. So then merger and demerger valuation. Or there may be a direction of a tribunal or authority, to any authority or arbitration of tribunals directions, then you have to execute the valuation. And for determining the fair price for effecting sales or transfer of shares, so as per the articles of association of the company or a bank, you have to do valuation work. So then some more situation is there, then block of shares and the conversion of debt instrument into shares and interest of dissenting of shareholders, okay, to value the interest of dissenting the shareholders under the scheme of amalgamation, merger, and reconstruction. Then advancing the loan against the security of shares. So valuation is very much required. These are some of the circumstances with which any bank or a company think of valuation. Here, okay, somehow valuation is started. What are the points you have to be considered by the valuer? There are 3 groups points. Some of the points are business related, some of the points are economic related, some of the points are financial related. Okay. Yes. What are the points of business related? Nature of business, history of enterprise, nature of products and services, risk associated with the business. So these are the four points or business related points: nature of business, history of enterprise, nature of product and services, risk associated with the business. There are two points which are important for the valuer, which are also related to economy, economic outlook in general, and outlook of specific industry in particular. So what is the overall economic outlook? Then what is the outlook of this particular industry? Say, for example, we are all talking about corporate restructuring of public sector bank, which fall under the banking industry. So what is the industry specific outlook? All you should keep in your mind. This is very important for the valuer in order to make a fair value. And the last 4 points are financial related. What are those 4 points? Financial condition of the business. I mean the banking business. Earning capacity of the bank. Dividend paying capacity of the bank. All must be taken into account by the valuer. Then book value of the share. Market price of a stock of listed peers. Okay. What is the market price? Then size of the block of shares to be valued. So that is also very important, which valuer should keep this in his mind. Then intangible values, contingent liabilities, substantial legal issues. So intangible values, contingent liabilities, and the substantial legal issues are also relating to financial matters, and the valuer should keep this in his mind. So last one, nature of instruments proposed to be issued. So what are the nature of instruments? Suppose they are issuing new instruments. What are the nature? And the nature of transaction contemplated. So all must be taken into account by the valuer while undergoing the valuation process. So this is very, very important, my dear friends. Then what are the various laws with which a valuer must have the knowledge? Suppose valuation of entities is undertaken by any individual or a body, he must look into or should have a look or must have a thorough knowledge or adequate knowledge on the following laws, because the following 9 laws are points are very much related to valuation of entities. Companies Act, Indian Companies Act 2013, Foreign Exchange Management Act, SEBI, then Stock Exchange, then Competition Commission of India, Stamp Duty, Income Tax Act, then Takeover Regulations, Indirect Tax, Accounting Standards. So like that, any individual must have a knowledge, adequate knowledge about all these things for undertaking fair valuation. So this is very important. So what is the general principles of valuation? When you think of general principles of valuation, the following are very important. That is, the value is determined at a specific point of time. It is only for a specific point of time. Suppose we complete the valuation today, the value after 1 week may be different, maybe lower or higher. Because economic conditions are always changing, perpetual. It's a dynamic. So there is no fixed value for all the time for all the assets. So that we have to understand. This is one of the basic principles. Then value is a prospective. This is very important. It is equivalent to present value. This is also very important. Or economic worth of all future benefits anticipated to acquire from ownership. Yeah, if you buy assets, then the future inflow should also be taken into account. Then market determines the required rate of return. This is also very important. Market is always required to determine the required rate of return. Then value is influenced by the liquidity. This is another general principle. Then higher the underlying net tangible assets value base, higher is the going concern value. So this is also very important principles. So valuer or the officials who are involved in the valuation process must note down this. Then another important aspect, what are the primary steps in the valuation? Suppose you are undergoing or your firm or your team is undergoing the valuation. What are the preliminary steps? There are 9 steps. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 9 steps. Yes. So analysis of business history. This is much more important. What is the business history? That is your first step. Then profit trends. So what is the current profit? What is the profit for the last 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? So you must have that trend in your mind. Then goodwill of a particular company. Then brand name of the particular company in the market. You should know. You should collect information about that. Then identifying economic factors directly affecting business. So what are the economic factors that are directly affecting the business? That must be identified by a team of valuer. This is very important. Then study of exchange risk involved. Suppose the company is a foreign company, then exchange rate risk is also there, and exchange of money is also there. When the exchange rate or exchange of money or asset is there, there is a risk involved. So that you have to study. You have to keep this in our mind. Then a study of employee morale. This is very important. Nowadays, HR performance, HR also influence the performance of the firm. Earlier, when we study, if you want to increase the profit, you have to increase the sales, like that we used to highlight. But today, HR performance is important. What I mean to say, employee morale also influence the performance. So you have to study. Quality management, quality of management, quality of executives, all must be taken into account. So you have to study, you have to make a study, you have to arrive some information. And the study of market capitalization aspect. Market capitalization aspect also you should study. That is last part 1 steps. And the last step, identification of hidden liability through analysis of material contracts. Yeah, there are some hidden liabilities, maybe due to MOU, due to contract, okay, some agreement of a particular company, there may be some hidden liabilities. Today, the company may not have the liability. After 5 years or 10 years, the liability may arise. So all you have to identify before valuation. Don't think that valuation is a simple exercise of arithmetic way of exercise. So it is more than that you have to understand. So valuation is a perspective. What is this? Okay, there are 5 important points: extent of control, timing, context, basis, forward-looking, and cash flows. So these are the promise we have to. And when we talk about the model is of 3 types: asset-based method, earning-based method, market-based method. Like that, the 3 methods are there. So that is the premises on which these perspective is to be decided. That is 5 components is there: extent of control, timing, context, basis, and forward-looking, and cash flow. Cash flow is key. So in respect of extent of control, the premium for control and the efficiency and the synergy is important. So, in the extent of control, this must be studied. Then, regarding the timing, the valuation is relative to a specific point of time. Because next day the value may increase or decrease. So that is very important. Prospective way you have to look at. And what is being, context, if you ask me, what is being valued, what it is being valued, secure definition of value. So this is an important context. Dear teachers, you should understand. And basis. On what basis? Whether the going concern concept basis you are going to do valuation or liquidation basis you are going to do valuation, all you have to understand. You have to decide. And the last one, forward looking and the cash flow key. So forward looking and the cash flow must be the key for the valuation. So this is very important, my dear friends. You have to understand this. Then where is the value? Yes. So what underpins the cash flow of the business? Value is something about very much related to cash flows. So cash flow of the business may arise maybe from the business assets or people or one person to another person or know-how. So what underpins the cash flow of the business, either from the fixed assets or people or know-how. So business people are also there. Okay. So value comes from the business people, maybe you employee, maybe top executives. So success depends always the executives or the people who are associated with the business. Or sometimes assets. What are the assets the company is having? And the brand. So these are the key value drivers. Or key risk area is also there. So people business, asset business, brands may be the good value driver. Similarly, associates risk is also associated with these three drivers. So that you have to understand. So the values are with the people. Risk is also with the people. Values are with the asset of the business. Risk is also associated with the business. Value is associated with the brand. And risk is also associated with the brand. This you have to understand. So once you have worked out what derives the value, you have to make sure that it is still there after you have acquired the business. So while buying an asset or while making a merger, you may feel that some value drivers are there. Okay, something are there. Maybe value driver, something may be there. So that may be the main reason for the merger or any corporate restructuring. Once the company comes to you or the asset comes to you, that may get disappear. So this risk is there. Even if you take the brand, when the firm is with the others, there may be brand value. It comes to you, the brand disappear. Okay, it may not be suddenly overnight. Maybe in 1 month or 6 months, the brand will lose its value. Okay, or similarly, people. When the company is managed by others, good people may be working with utmost performance. But when the company comes to me, so good people may go out from the company because of my attitude, my way of treatment. Or some people may not go, but they won't work with full capacity or full way of doing it. So this you have to understand, my dear friends. So value is available here. I mean to say the cash flow. So what are the valuation approach? So to determine the value of business, there are 3 different approaches. It is asset-based approach, earning-based approach, market-based approach. So these 3 approaches are there. Okay. What are the valuation methodologies? So asset-based, earning-based, market-based, already I told you. So asset-based is otherwise called a net asset value also, you can think. Okay, then more than one right way to value. Approaches are not exclusive, but complement each other. So this is what you have to understand. You can use one or two methods. So we will think of types. Asset-based. Under asset-based, there is a net asset value method is there. Under the earning-based method, there are 5 divisions: discounted cash flow method, earning capitalization method, price earning ratio method, contribution or excess earning method, or incremental cash flow method. This way, the methods are there. Under the market-based, there are 3. That is rule of thumb method, comparable companies multiples, then comparable transaction multiples. These are the 3 methods under the market-based. The value of business or entity are intangibles. That is the core of the valuation. So value of business, you are going to value the business or entity, or maybe intangibles which are not visible. You are going to value which are not visible. So that is so methods should focus on this. So first we will see the asset-based approach. Yeah, time is very short. So asset-based method is a form of evaluation in business that focuses on value of companies' assets or fair market value of total assets after deducting the liabilities. So this is asset-based method, my dear friends. So this method is suitable for entities with more tangible assets. So when the company is having more number of tangible assets, we can think of using the asset-based method. And in order to apply the asset-based approach, the Cohen concept approach, you are following. Okay, so this is what very important. Other details are on the slide. You can read, go through. So under the asset-based approach, only one method is net asset method. So this method comes under the asset-based approach. It determines the fair value of every assets and the liability on the date of the valuation. So on the date of the valuation, what is the fair market value they are taking? So the value of business is equal to value of assets minus value of liability. I mean to say the fair market value. Okay. So that is very important in this method. The second one, earning-based method. So this under the earning-based method, it is based on the idea that the actual value of business lies in the ability to produce revenue in the future. That is very important. So what is the current profit is not very important. What would be your ability to create profit in the future, make profit in the future? So that is a core issue in the earning-based approach, my dear friends. So there are many methods under the earning-based approach. Already I have explained. So capitalization of earning is determined by the calculating the NPV, that is net present value. So of the expected future cash flows or profit. So net present value, you know the meaning about the future cash flow or profit should be taken. That is expected future cash flow should be taken. So PE ratio of the listed company can also be calculated by dividing the current price of their shares by earning per share. So all are there. You can go through. Then we will see the different method under the earning approach. Discounted cash flow, already told you net present value is a base for under the earning approach. So first, discounted cash flow method. Discounted cash flow method is based on the expected future cash flows and the discount rates. This is very important. So what is the discount rate? You have to decide. Then what would be the expected future cash flows, future earnings, or your capacity to earn in future? That is very important. So this approach is easiest to use for assets and firms whose cash flow are currently positive. Okay. But if it is an intangible assets, it is very difficult. Okay. So in this approach, cash flows are discounted at a risk-adjusted discount rate to arrive the estimate of the value. So this is the cash flow method. Formula is there. I didn't give the formula. It is available in every book. Then excess earning method is another method under the discounted cash flow method. So this method comes under the asset and income-based approach. Okay. So the total value of the company is calculated by combining the tangible net adjusted assets at the fair market value with intangible value as estimated here. So other details are given in this slide. So capitalization of earning method is a third method under the earning approach. So future estimated earnings are determined and divided by the capitalization rate to obtain the value. So in this method, no separation is done between tangible and intangible assets. This is important. So therefore, this method is not appropriate for capital intensive companies. That also you have to note down. And the fourth one is a price earning ratio method. So this is a method which is in combination of income and the market approach. So weighted average price or earning ratio of similar publicly traded company or bank need to be taken to in order to capitalizing the future estimated net income. Okay. So this method is generally used to determine the value of large and diversified companies. So you think whether it is applicable to banking or not. Then incremental cash flow method. So this is an extra cash flow of a business, okay, which will generate investment in a new project over and above its existing cash flow. And normally there may be a difference. So you have to calculate the difference of current cash flow of the company and the future cash flow of the company. Whenever the difference is a positive and a considerable, so management shall go ahead with the project. And when the difference is negative or low, so the decision is to be reconsidered or once again consider whatever. And the third one, market-based approach. So market value approach is another standard method of valuation. But so under this method, the sale of every similar business is to be analyzed. So adjustments are to be made for the difference in quality, quantity, and size, regardless of which the asset is being valued. So under the market value approach, adjustments are to be made for all. So valuation method under the market approach I have given you. So comparable transaction is also given. Then third one, evaluation under the market approach. So under the rule of thumb is also there. All are self-explanatory. So what are the issues and challenges of valuation? So accounting. So there are different accounting norms are there, you know well. Then if you think of merging with a company of abroad, our company is following one set of norms, accounting rule. The foreign companies, using other one. So different. So the information available in the financial statement differs based on the accounting rules, accounting treatment. Then you have to think. Then similarly, jurisdiction, different regulation, settlement mechanism, that is also there. Then multiple currencies. When you think of merger with the foreign companies, foreign banks, so currency issues are there. Then because of the valuation, there may be volatility. Impact of volatility should be taken into account, maybe a big challenge. Interholding in merging companies also there, you have to think. External instruments, maybe optionally convertible and differential voting rights are also there. These are the important issues. Then premium and discount is also important issues, my dear friends. So with this, I am coming to my concluding part, my dear friends. I think evaluation method is explained without going to a case study method. I am doing it. So the restructuring program will have to encompass operational, organizational, and financial and systematic restructure. And it must be implemented in a time-bound manner. That is also very important. Then only you can see the success. Initially, banks were restructured to save the non-performing assets and non-efficient banks. But in recent times, restructuring have also been made on the grounds of business growth, profitability, and organizational structure. So earlier the aim was different, but now the aim is of the motive is different. So all you have to understand. Our present Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the creation of new generation bank is imperative for India to become a $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years. So this is what her statement. So therefore, merger and acquisition or restructuring is ordered. The act of business valuation needs to be more of science than the perception and the guess. So valuation should not be made based on the guess, okay, or perception. It should be scientific. The valuer to keep in mind fairness of all stakeholders. Yes, employee, shareholder, equity shareholder, debenture holders, lenders, customers, public. So there are many stakeholders. So the interest of everybody should be protected in the process of restructuring or in the valuation, whatever it may be. So the balance, you have to balance the needs to be achieved through transparency, fairness, and best corporate governance. That is very, very important. So on every occasion, there may not be a definitive valuation method or a definitive value conclusion. This is very important. Okay? Once again, repeat. On every occasion, there may not be a definitive valuation method or a definitive value conclusion. But every valuation is based on only its circumstances. This is what very important. So today, one particular method may be suitable to you. Tomorrow, it may not be suitable. Okay, that is very, very important. So the right valuation requires logical and methodological approach and a careful application of basic principles. So basic principles is also important. That is what our discussion. Methodological approach, you have to do some exercise. So my lecture focused on the careful application of the basic principles of the valuation. I hope you will accept. So this means there may not be a prescribed format or preferred methodology which is to be adopted always. So therefore, my dear friends, don't expect any particular method relevant always, all the time, for all the company, for all the bank. So what is the correct method for X bank may not be correct for bank B. Similarly, what is the correct for bank A today may not be suitable or applicable for tomorrow. So this is what very important. Okay, so this is what my information, my dear friends, which I thought of sharing to you. I once again appreciate the organizers for the wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts. I appreciate all the audience for the passion listening. Okay, I hope I have given you some information. So over to organizers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Very elaborate, detailed discussions about valuation, corporate restructuring of public sector banks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that with yesterday's speaker and the first speaker not to cover that valuation methodological part, public sector banks, how these public sector banks merged with that other banks. So in detail discussions, I hope these participants and delegates and faculty of that commerce and management across the country to benefit and to take part for implementing that these research also. So this is for very rare research for valuation methodology, exclusive for corporate restructuring. So this is a forum, online platform. It enriched knowledge to the faculty colleagues as well as the future generation of the researchers to motivate us. So this is the platform. I really happy and heartfelt thank our most respected Professor M. Selvam to contribute to wonderful methodological part on this online portal. Thank you very much. On behalf of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Agappa University and faculty of Department of Corporate Secretaryship to wholeheartedly thank you, Professor M. Selvam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please share the feedback.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yeah. You share my email. If they have any doubts, let them contact.
Now,
I will try my level best to clarify with them.
Now this formal vote of thanks proposed by Professor S.P. Madhuraj.
Okay.
Almost good morning. In spite of process busy schedule, he is spared 1.5 hours to deliver the very informative session to the participants. Sir has covered merger and acquisition, banks in details. What are the issues of mega merger, objectives behind it, valuation, when it is to be, principles of valuation, Indian laws related to the impact of valuation, steps in valuation, where the valuation is, approaches of valuation, and also he elaborately discussed the methodologies for valuation. Sir, this is very informative session. On behalf of participants and the Department of Corporate Secretaryship and my own behalf, I thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your wonderful session discussed with the participants. And very small information. With this vote of thanks, the next session will be at 12 o'clock. This is a time for tea break. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, friends. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. What is